Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection webinar. Please note any website or email that I mention will be posted in the chat box. For those seeking business licensing assistance, you can visit the Small Business Center at City Hall or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business licenses can be applied for or renewed online at chicagobusinessdirect.org. If you are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you can get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. If you want to learn about this program, please visit chicago.gov/businesseducation. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. I will post the mentioned information in the chat box. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please note that the views, information, and opinions expressed during this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection or the City of Chicago. Today's webinar will be Grants, Incentives, and Free Assistance for Your Business, presented by Andrew Fogaty, Executive Director of 36 Squared Business Incubator. Andrew?
Great. Thank you very much, Geraldine. Again, my name's Andrew. I'm with the 36 Squared Business Incubator. We're here in the McKinley Park, Bridgeport area. And today we're a nonprofit business development organization. We're funded in part by the city and also by our friends at CIBC, who have been sponsoring us for a number of years now. CIBC is also involved with the city's entrepreneurship certificate program. So I do recommend you take advantage of that. Since we're talking about free assistance for your business, the webinars that BAC puts on are always high quality and very worthwhile, so I recommend them. So let's jump in. This is all about helpful resources for starting or growing your business. I know some of the people that are listening today, they just have an idea and they're wondering, what would be the next step? And some other people are currently in business and they want to see what's out there. You've heard about other people getting grants or contracts or assistance, and how do you access that? So that's what we're going to be covering today. There is going to be a lot of information. But again, BACP does record these and put them up on YouTube, so you don't need to be frantically writing. I would recommend you go and you make some notes of what you want to pursue, and then go ahead and review the YouTube video. Also, both my email address and my colleague Veronica's is going to be at the end of the presentation. If you want to shoot us an email saying add us to your email list, then we'll go ahead and we'll send you this presentation and keep you updated with any new grants, assistance, or trainings that might be coming out. So, free assistance for your business. First, I'd like to talk about the Illinois Small Business Development Centers. These are funded by the SBA, actually, and also by the Illinois Department of Commerce. The SBA funds small business development centers across the country. And here in Illinois, we have, I think, between 35 and 40 of them. So there should be one near you. And what this is free assistance, confidential assistance to help you launch your business. If you go to the SBA website and you click on Find Local Assistance, one of the SBDCs will pop up. It's free. There's a lot of very knowledgeable people on hand there to assist you, and I certainly recommend that you take advantage of it. They can assist you in writing a business plan, finding funding, licensing requirements, pretty much one-stop shop for everything you would need. The other organizations network that I would recommend to you is the City of Chicago's Neighborhood Business Development Centers, NBDCs. This is kind of the city's mirror image of the SBDC program. So you can stop by an NBDC and you can talk about licensing or zoning, any incentives that might be coming up, writing a business plan. Again, these are knowledgeable people with experience who are there to help you start or grow your business. Also, we're not actually in competition with one another. So if you come to say us here at 36 Squared and you talk about starting your business and you don't feel that we're resonating with you, we're not giving you the type of assistance you need, you can certainly go to any other SBDC or NBDC, and our feelings will not be hurt. Also, some of us have various type of niche areas of expertise. For example, I work a lot with manufacturing, and I also work with disabled entrepreneurs. So it would make sense if you were on the northwest side of the city to contact me if you were doing manufacturing or if you had a disability, just because I have a background in it. Same with the SBDCs. I know the SBDC director in the northwest suburbs used to had launched a guitar factory. So if you were going to launch a guitar factory, it makes sense for you to talk to him. Also, the Illinois International Trade Centers, if you have a product or a service that you want to get overseas, you want to get it to Canada, Mexico, Iceland, how do you do that? The International Trade Centers is where you want to go. These are, again, professionals. That's all they do all day long. They're paid by the government to help Illinois businesses, which is you, get exports, their products overseas. Government contracts is another big thing. It can be, there could be a lot of paperwork with government contracts, and there is, it can be a complicated system. However, once you get a government contract, it's well worth doing, whether it's local government, county, federal. If you have a product or service, you want to get it in the libraries, you want to get it in the Coast Guard, then you want to check out the PTACs, which are Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. Once again, we have them all across the state, and everything I'm talking about here, the assistance is at no charge. So I do recommend that you check it out. City of Chicago's Leary program. This is a long-time program that I think has a great deal of value for the manufacturers in the city. Leary stands for Local Industrial Retention Initiative. And what these are guys in the various industrial corridors of the city and around the neighborhoods, whose job it is, they're kind of like your liaison for a manufacturer to City Hall. And they're also going to be the first ones to hear about any manufacturing incentives. So I would go online to cityofchicago.org, I believe, and try and find the list of the Leary people that are near you. If you're a manufacturer, give them a call, set up a meeting, and see how they can help you, assist you in moving business forward. Your local chamber of commerce, the neighborhood chamber of commerce, the city chambers of commerce, they're always valuable. They have a lot of times they control SSAs, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later, but they're always a valuable network of professionals ready to help you. There may be membership fees connected with the Chamber of Commerce, by the way, if you want to join, but usually you can get a little bit of information at no charge. If you're outside Chicago, every town and municipality probably has some sort of economic development department. So if you're outside Chicago and you're listening to this, I would recommend that you check with whoever your local town or city is to see if they have people to assist you, and if they may have some specific grants and incentives available through them. The SBA is, of course, the Federal Small Business Administration. They have a great website with a lot of resources to launch or grow your business. SCORE is another nonprofit economic development organization where you can get some really good assistance and counseling. Also, last year, Cook County launched their Small Business Source program, which is, again, a network of organizations that will give you, at no charge, assistance in launching and growing your business. And you don't have to just choose one, by the way. I would recommend that you connect with a few different of these organizations to see who might be able to best assist you. So the type of assistance that you can get from, say, the NBDCs or the SBDCs, you can get networking opportunities, workforce development assistance, marketing assistance, financial resources connected to loans, funding, information about a particular neighborhood, especially with the NBDCs. They're set in the neighborhoods so they can give you more information about the neighborhoods and also assist you in troubleshooting with City Hall. Any of the issues that might relate to zoning or inspections, that type of thing. If you are interested in getting government grants or government contracts, then you need to be registered with SAM. Just pull something off my screen. SAM is the federal government system for award management. It's a registry for everybody that wants to do business or get a grant with the government. Fair warning, registering for SAM was one of the most annoying and time-consuming forms that I've ever had to fill out online. But you do have to do it if you want to get grants or do business with not only the federal government, but the state also. Also, there used to be what's known as a DUNS number, which was it would identify your business and was often required on a lot of forms. That's been dropped now. The new number to replace the DUNS is Unique Entity ID number, and you can get that through SAM also. So if you're in business, starting a business, and you're hoping to access government grants or do any type of business with the government, do a little yoga, get yourself a glass of wine, sit down, and force yourself to go through the process of registering with SAM.gov. Once you're registered with SAM.gov, you can also go and start applying for grants through grants.gov, which is the federal government's database of available government grants for small businesses, nonprofits, and educational institutions. So you can always go and browse through that, but before you are ready to apply, I would recommend you register with SAM.gov. Oh, my screen has just frozen up. Okay. Often when I do these presentations, there's always at least a few people listening that are interested in acquiring property. So I would recommend that you check out the Cook County Land Bank. The Cook County Land Bank is where vacant, abandoned, foreclosed properties or tax delinquent properties are taken over by the county. And they're actually, the pricing is incredible. So if they have residences, but they also have commercial and industrial buildings. And there's new inventory coming in and out pretty quickly there. So if you're interested in property acquisition, sometimes people are just interested in flipping private homes, do check out the Cook County Land Bank, because I think there may be some opportunity there for you. As far as foreclosures go, the pricing is not as good as the land bank, but you can find foreclosed properties at homepath.com or homesteps.com. I believe they may have just lengthened that URL. So if for any chance those don't work, then Google Fannie Mae plus HomePath or Freddie Mac plus HomeSteps, and that should lead you to the correct website for those properties. Let's talk about grants and incentives directly now, which I know is what a lot of you are for. First of all, I'd like to promote our Boost Awards here at 36 Squared. We have just this week opened up the application for the 36 Squared Business Incubator Boost Awards. The application period is going from now through May 1st, and this is very specifically for disabled entrepreneurs. If you have a disability and you want to start a business or grow your current business, please go online to our website, 36business.org, click on Boost Awards and take a look at this grant. Also look at the awardees. You can see who's received the award in the past, the amounts they've received, types of businesses that we're assisting. The most any one person can get is up to $1,000. Usually we have perhaps one person with 1,000, a few people getting 800, a few people getting 5 or 6. And this is to just give you that little bit of seed money to launch that business if you're a person with a disability. Once you do have that little bit of seed money, of course, we can work with you to try and get additional fundings, whether they're microloans or traditional lenders, through our sponsor CIBC or through one of the many good nonprofit lenders that are available in Chicago. So please, if you have a disability or if you know somebody with a disability and they're interested in entrepreneurship, have them check out the 36 Squared Business Incubator Boost Awards. That's at 36business.org, and it is only available until May 1st. We usually do this once a year. Property tax. So if you're interested in acquiring a property, ideally before you buy the property, you should see if you can possibly get the property taxes reduced. As an example, I'm in an industrial area here. If I wanted to purchase the building across the street, before I purchased it, I would go to the county and I would try and get what's known as a 6B property tax incentive. Essentially, what you're doing is you're going to the county and you're saying, I want to purchase this property. I want to create jobs. I want to widen the tax base. I want to improve the building in the neighborhood, but the taxes are so high. So what a 6B property tax, and there's other Bs also, 6B I'm talking about is, I believe, industrial. But what these property tax incentives will do is cut your property tax roughly in half for up to 10 years, and then it's renewable for another 10. So if you have if you buy a building in Cook County and you have your property taxes cut in half for 20 years, that can be a significant amount of money. So if you're in that position and you want to purchase an industrial, commercial building, this is not for residential, I believe, then I would certainly recommend that you pursue that. You're also welcome to reach out to myself or one of my colleagues here at 36 Square. We'll be happy to help you, assist you with some of this stuff. So for building improvements, one of the best grant programs, and a shout out to Summer Corps, one of our non-partners within the city's network of economic development. Summer Corps manages this the SPIF program, and they do a great job of it. It's the most well-managed grant program that I'm aware of. So a SPIF grant, SPIF stands for Small Business Improvement Fund. And what this is if you need work done to improve the physical building where you are. Perhaps you need ADA bathrooms, you need plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, tuck pointing, that type of thing. If you are in one of the TIF, tax increment financing zones, where there is SPIF funds available, you can apply for the SPIF grant that's going to reimburse you 50 to 75% of the cost of the improvement. The maximum grant available last time I looked, by the way, often these grant programs are tweaked and I may not always be aware of it. So this is to kind of give you an overview, but to get the most up-to-date information, I do recommend you go to, in this case, summercorps.com/SPIF. And it's a great program. It goes very quickly as far as how quickly you get the reimbursement. And it can give you $150,000, $250,000 as a reimbursement to pick up a portion of the cost of the improvements of your building. So I highly recommend that you check out summercorps.com and to see if the SPIF district, if you're in a SPIF district, and if it's opening up near you. The Chicago Recovery Grant. So this is currently not available, but I do expect it, I do hope and expect it to become available again. This is grant funding that can use for pre-development, construction, renovation, costs of capital improvement projects. It's not for residential, and pretty much nothing I'm talking about today is for residential. This is for businesses and small businesses. But it's a great City of Chicago program that can help you fund your project in your neighborhood. If you want to start, a manufacturing project or a retail project, an art museum, anything like that. The Chicago Recovery Grant is an excellent grant for doing that. They have two levels, below $250,000 and above. As I understand it, the below $250,000 does not require city council approval, and therefore it's going to go along much more quickly. Above $250,000, it's going to be a more in-depth process, and it can take quite a while to get those funds. So consider that. You would want to talk to your neighborhood business development center, see if they have any experience with the Chicago Recovery Grant. Since this is a city grant, you may ask them if and when it's going to be, open for applications again, and your NBDC should be able to assist you. Another grant program, which is a city grant program that the city NBDC network should be able to assist you with, is the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. Now, this is within the neighborhood. It's especially good if you live within the neighborhood and you want to do something to improve your neighbor, because there's extra benefits if you live neighborhood in your neighborhood. It's primarily available on the south and southwest sides. It's not available in parts of the west side. It's not available citywide. And if you go to their website, neighborhoodopportunityfund.com, you can see whether or not the address where you want to do your project is available. Once again, the last round of funding for the NOF, I believe, closed last month, but I do expect and hope that it's going to reopen again later in the year. So it's not too early to start to get yourself positioned for this. And once again, it has a wide range of things that you could use it for actually acquiring the land, security, roofing, facade repair, tuck pointing, architectural fees, a lot of soft costs, design example, for example, that would be connected with a project in one of the neighborhoods. So that's really a very, very good opportunity to find funding to improve your neighborhood. Check that out. So this is a new program from Bank of America for commercial real estate. If you're a woman-owned business or a minority-owned business, Bank of America is inviting you to participate in their down payment program, which they're going to pick up 50% of the cost of your down payment up to, I believe, $25,000. So I believe it's limited to opportunity zones within your city, and you can check that out by talking to, whether you're in an opportunity zone, by talking to your Leary, your neighborhood business development center. Also, the Women's Business Development Center, I believe, has done some marketing for this program. The WBDC also is funded by the city and the state, and they are not limited to only women. Anybody can get help from the Women's Business Development Center, and they do an excellent job. So if you are interested in this Bank of America grant in particular, or any of the other things we're talking about, WBDC is another good resource in the city for assistance with this. General small business grants. There's a website called helloalice.com. It's free to sign up for. And what they do is they pull grants and other funding opportunities from around the country, and they will send you notifications. I took a look at it yesterday. They didn't have any Chicago grants available or Illinois grants available right now, but they do change and update them fairly quickly. So take a look at it. It's free. I would certainly recommend that you sign up for Hello Alice. Special service areas. So if you have, this is usually for retail corridors. If you're in a retail corridor in the city of Chicago, and I do believe SSAs exist outside Chicago, but I'm most familiar with the ones within the city of Chicago. And these are special service areas where there's funding available to beautify the public way. So perhaps with nicer street lights or bike racks. It's available to help marketing and advertising for the districts to help attract people to your business. Some of the SSAs will assist with security cameras for your business. Some of them will assist with facade improvements or special events. So this is money that's set aside to help your business if you're in an SSA. So you can find out whether you're in an SSA or not by going to the City of Chicago's website. You should also check out your local business development organization or your local chamber, your neighborhood chamber of commerce, because often they have access to those funds. Also, your alderman's office should have some information on this. So they can tell you whether you're in an area which could access an SSA or perhaps a small business improvement fund, and how that can assist you in your particular business. On the job training, OJT. If you're hiring, then I recommend that you familiarize yourself with the on-the-job training program. So these are, I believe, federal dollars that are administered through the state and the county in some instances, and nonprofit economic development organizations. If you hire somebody who is currently on or eligible for unemployment, and this is also being used for disabled employees. When you're interviewing somebody who's on or eligible for unemployment, before you hire them, you should find out whether they can be eligible for the OJT program. This is going to reimburse you, the employer, up to $10,000 for hiring and training this new employee into the position. Now, one thing to remember about this particular program, actually, most of the grant programs are not retroactive. So don't have the work done and then try to see if the SPIF is going to pay for it, because it won't. Don't have your facade done and then go looking for the SSA funding to reimburse you, because it won't. OJT is only available before the person is hired. So when you're speaking to the potential job candidate, you find out he's been currently laid off from his job, he's on unemployment. What you would want to do is say to them, Bob, this looks like it's going to be a good fit. I hope to have you on in the next month or so, but we're working with a training program. They're going to contact you in the next few days. And after those results, I hopefully will be able to make your job. Don't tell them they've got the job, because what's going to happen is the administration from OJT is going to call them. They're going to say, Bob, we understand you're looking for a job. You'll say, no, I just got hired. They say, fine, then they don't need the funds. So I do have some employers who routinely hire a lot of people and get reimbursed $10,000 for each employee as they come in. So it's a good program, and I do recommend that you investigate it and take advantage of it. TIF works. So TIF, the TIF districts in Chicago stand for Tax Increment Financing Districts. And the city of Chicago will work, if you wanted to do a large project, say a movie studio, a large manufacturing project, you can contact the city of Chicago through one of your Leary or other delegate agencies and see if there are you know what? I'm actually talking about the wrong program right now. TIF Works is another TIF program, which will, I believe, is still there's still funding available in your TIF to assist you with training your employees. So what you want to do is contact your local Leary or other delegate agency, tell them the training that you're doing, and see if there's TIF funding available that will pick up some of the cost of that through the TIF Works program. Since we were talking about TIF, I'm just going to interject there because I don't believe I put a slide on it. If you are doing a big project, if you're doing a movie studio, if you're doing a large manufacturing concern, and none of these grant programs that I'm talking about seem like they're going to work for you, then you can talk to City Hall directly through your local alderman, through perhaps your Leary or your NBDC, and see if there can be TIF funding available to assist you in what you're doing. If it's a big project, I believe it's at times in the past, I believe it's still the case. Perhaps the city can use some TIF funding to help you launch that. So that's the program I was alluding to. Now, community project funding. This is an interesting one. It used to be called earmarks. You used to hear about Congress people earmarking funds for a particular project. Well, for the past 2 years, Congress has had what's known as community project funding. The change in Congress, I'm hoping it's going to become around this year again. I'm not sure. You would want to contact your member of Congress's office to ask them. But this is very specifically funding that to help a nonprofit that the congressperson controls. So essentially, I believe they can fund 10 different projects, each congressperson. Typically, in the past 2 years, the application's been available, I think, in April. And it can be a wide range of funds from tens of thousands up to millions to help you launch your project. So go to your local congressperson's website, see if there's any information on their community project funding. Check out with all of these grants, with any grant, take a look at who they funded in the past. For example, with the Boost Awards for Disabled Entrepreneurship, you can see who won in the past. With Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, on their webpage, you can see who's been funded in the past. And also with the Congressional Grants Community Project Funding, you can see who's been funded in in the past and the amounts. But this will give you a good idea of the type of things that they're funding in the community. Some other things to consider are empowerment zones where there may be tax incentives and incentives to hire residents in certain economically disadvantaged areas. Hub zone stands for historically underutilized business zones. You may get your business, if you're in one of these zones, may get preferential treatment when you're getting federal contracts, government contracts. Enterprise zones, TIF districts, these are all specialized zones to try and help the businesses in those areas. And you can usually find out, once again, through your NBDC, through your SBDC, or through the city of Chicago, what districts you're in, or just Google Hub Zones plus Chicago, and you'll find out, the city of Chicago in particular, that you may be in a number of different of these zones and be unaware of it. So find out what zones you're in and make sure you're taking advantage of whatever tax incentives, hiring incentives there are in these zones. If you have a nonprofit, let me just see how we're doing on time here. Okay, I've been going along pretty quickly, so I'll have a nice amount of time for questions. So if you have a nonprofit organization in Chicago, I also wanted to talk about some of the foundations that have funding available to fund nonprofits. 3M has grants for nonprofits to help individuals advance in the STEM fields, climate change, or various humanitarian relief efforts. The Carnegie Foundation, they specialize in higher education, resources for African scholars. Coca-Cola gives back 1% of its year's operating income to nonprofit agencies and empower women, enhance communities, protect the environment, advance education. Walmart, they also have grant opportunities promoting diversity, sustainability, improving nutrition and disaster preparedness. Ford Foundation, they have funding for civic engagement, fighting inequality, promoting environmental sustainability. Bank of America, they also have grants to promote hunger relief, homelessness, stable housing, the arts and culture. Amazon also has grants. And the way to find these, by the way, is Google. Bank of America Grants Foundation, Ford Foundation, Amazon Web Services, Imagine Grant. Google the names of these, find the foundations, and then look and see what their criteria is. Make sure you're not wasting your time by applying for a grant to a foundation where you don't meet their criteria. Amazon Web Services are powering nonprofits that leverage technology to advance their projects and goals. So make sure that you're not wasting your time again. Make sure you're applying to somebody that can assist, to a grant that you can qualify for. Get support for your community, especially with the government grants. If you're applying to a grant from the city of Chicago, if you're applying for a state grant, Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, sorry about that. You want to make sure, the city wants to make sure that it's the Alderman's office, the city of Chicago wants to make sure that that funding is being well spent in the communities on projects that the community supports. So talk to your local church, talk to your community Chamber of Commerce, the community organizations. Get some support when if you're putting in that that Neighborhood Opportunity Fund project. Make sure that you've got you've talked to your aldermen, your state legislators. Make sure that the city knows that this is something the community can get behind. Because it's very important that it's not just you, and especially with the government grants, it should not just be something to, if I put in a grant application that's just going to make Andrew money because Andrew wants to flip houses, it's unlikely any government support is going to come my way. On the other hand, if I'm renovating buildings to create a business incubator, an arts center, something that's going to benefit the community, and I can show that I've got support from this community, then my chances of getting that funding are much greater. Geraldine, I think that I've whipped through that pretty quickly, so I'm happy to take some questions.
Great, thanks, Andrew. So first question, can we receive a recording? The recording will be posted on youtube.com/BA Chicago BACP. And I put it in the chat, and I could do that again as well. Lots of this is great. This is wonderful.
Oh, well, that's nice. Thanks.
The community development will apply for restaurant restoration.
So restaurant restoration, there is a lot of funding available for exactly that type of thing, and it would be based on the exact address of the restaurant. At the end of my last slide, actually, I'll put it in there. There's my email address and also Veronica's, my colleague's email address. Email any one of us. If you want to put your exact address in there and what you're planning to do, we'll do a little bit of legwork and see if we can assist you with that. Also, if you want to get on our mailing list, once again, send an email to either one of us, and we'll be happy to put you on the mailing list. So as we learn of new grants and new programs, you'll hear about it early. But yeah, renovating a restaurant, there could be SSA funds available for that. There could be SPIF funds available for that. There could be NOF funds available for that. So I would recommend that you do that.
Great, thank you. Can you go over City of Chicago Leary program again?
So the City of Chicago Leary program stands for, I'm wondering if a Leary guy put that question in there. But the City of Chicago Leary program stands for Local Industrial Retention Initiative. And actually, I'm glad that question was asked, because a lot of people wonder why this is a good use of tax dollars to go ahead and give money to small businesses. And the City of Chicago, within the City of Chicago, the South Side industrial properties are in competition with the North and the West Side. Everybody's in competition with the suburbs. Everybody in the state is in competition with other states. If you have a manufacturing business, you will have people knocking on the door. My clients have had people knocking on their door. If they're in Chicago and they're coming from people from Alabama will come and knock on the door and say, I do economic development in Alabama. We'll be happy to offer you this incentive, that incentive. Taxes are low, free parking, the sun shining. Please bring your business to Alabama. So in order to thwart that, to counter that, also other countries, by the way, Mexico has a big presence in the state of Illinois, trying to get people to come to their state. And also, I'm sure we do it in other places also. But so the key is retention. We being the economic development people in the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago, we want to keep your small business here. We want to keep you paying taxes. We want to keep you happy, hiring, and growing. And so the key word is retention. So LERI stands for Local Industrial Retention Initiative. And these are people that's more specifically, they mostly work with manufacturing. And they will liaison, so the word I use, with City Hall. If you have any questions, problems with zoning, maybe an inspector leaning on you unfairly, rather than just calling the general number at City Hall, you want to get to know your LERI rep. Also, sometimes they can resolve issues for you. Also, they're going to know about any grants or incentives before it becomes public generally. They'll know about it early on. And if they know of something that's going to very specifically benefit you, they'll probably come and talk to you about it. So LERI is once again a representative, a professional whose job it is to keep your manufacturing business in Chicago. And they generally, if you're expanding, they may very well have a good database of who's moving out. So maybe there's property available, that type of thing. They're also pretty close with most of the aldermanic offices, so they can assist you there also.
Okay, great. Next question. Are there any programs that offer free business licensing and registration?
No, not that I'm aware of.
What grants are for shared kitchen users that bake?
So shared kitchen, I assume that you're talking about not wanting to, I assume that you're talking about not wanting us to start a shared kitchen. If you wanted to start a shared kitchen, acquire a building, build it out, funding, all of that type of thing, then you could use a number of the things that we talked about here. You could find a building perhaps on the Cook County Land Bank. You could perhaps get bank, if you're a woman, get Bank of America to give you a portion of the down payment. You could use one of the other programs, Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, perhaps to fund some of the acquisition and the build out. So you could layer on a lot of those. But if you're just a user of a shared kitchen, if you have a disability, you could use Boost Award funds for that. I'm not aware of any other funding that would be specifically for that. But let me also say that most small businesses do not get a lot of their funding through grants. They're often through loans. And if you're using a shared kitchen space, then I'm assuming that you're probably a fairly small baker in this case. I'd recommend that you talk to your local NBDC. You could talk to us, my colleague Veronica, about funding, or any of the other NBDCs or the SBDCs. Allies for Community Business, for example, is a great nonprofit organization that will lend small amounts, $1,000, $2,000 to a startup, which is very hard to find people who will lend to startups, but they will lend to a small startup to give you that funds to get into that shared kitchen space. So although this particular webinar is on grants and incentives, there may be other funding available in the form of small loans. If you're in a position where you found out that you've run into some hardship and you absolutely cannot get anybody to lend you money, which I know is the case sometimes, I would recommend you take a look at kiva.org. This is a way of funding through, essentially it's crowd lending. It's managed here by the Women's Business Development Center. Gabriella over there does a great job. And if you find yourself in a position where through whatever hardships you've run into that you cannot get a loan from anybody, then I would recommend you check out Kiva. I believe it's kiva.org, K-I-V-A, maybe kiva.com, but it's a form of crowd lending that works out pretty well. And if you're successful, it will give you an amount of money, a small amount of money at a 0% interest loan for, I believe, 3 years. So that would be my thoughts on that.
Great, thank you. Is there any trainings that are being offered on how to bid for projects?
I'm going to throw that back at you, Geraldine. I personally am not aware of anything, but the city and the state might be doing something.
I would check with the Department of Procurement Services. They may have some training to help with that.
Yes, so cityofchicago.org, procurement services. Okay, I have seen them come out occasionally, but I'm not aware of anything that's going on right now.
Okay, great. Next one. My company is a combination of for-profit LLC. However, I partner with nonprofits and community organizations. I'm building my company organization to be along the lines of a beneficial corporation or a profit with a nonprofit initiatives. How can I best navigate this? My structure is 2 businesses in one. And I'm trying to utilize VA assets, disabled assist, Native American tribal land for my family and federal and local resources,
Sure.
culinary, agriculture, and logistics.
Sure, okay. So I would forget about all of the nonprofit stuff, for example, the foundation things. Because even though you're doing good work with a for-profit, you won't really it's my understanding, by the way, and this is my understanding according to my experience and the latest information I've seen on it. So things may change, but as a nonprofit 501c3, you're tax exempt and you're eligible for a number of different grants and programs that a for-profit may not be. So from what you've told me, I don't think you're eligible for any of the nonprofit things. The best you could do is tell the nonprofits that you work with about these different programs or the foundations and encourage them to apply for it. But I don't think you'll get any benefit about that at all. Also, this would be a good time. I'd like to just say, if you're thinking about starting a business, talk to your local SBDC or NBDC about your idea and whether or not it is actually a for-profit business or would be better as a nonprofit. Every year I talk to a number of people and they have ideas. They want to start a business that perhaps will help ex-offenders get back into society, or they want to start a business that's going to, feed homeless people. Well, who's going to pay for that? The ex-offenders probably don't have funding to pay for that, to make that successful. The homeless people certainly don't have funding available to pay for this. But perhaps you should consider this as a nonprofit, where then you can start to pursue grant funding to help you do your good work. So typically, if you're selling a good or a service, then you can be a for-profit business. But if you want to do good things in the world, and there isn't a clear path of who's going to pay you to do it, then talk to some of the people that we've talked to here at SBDC, NBDCs, and see if whether or not a nonprofit route makes more sense.
Great, thank you for that one.
Sure.
Can you think of any programs for me starting a painting and finishing contracting biz?
Well, that seems to me to be a painting and finishing contracting business seems to be something that you could start. You should talk to your local NBDC, SBDC. Grants for startups are almost non-existent, with the exception of the Boost grant if you have a disability. There are not very many grants for startups. However, if you're starting a painting contracting business, it seems to me that you could start that on with a fairly low level of investment. So once again, I would go to the SBA website and talk to your SBDC or NBDC, find out exactly how much money you need to launch this business, and look at one of the loan programs that are out there. I'm also a big proponent of starting lean. So if you're, for instance, starting a bakery, if your goal is to be in Entenmann's and to be in every Walgreens and Jewel across the Midwest and to have, a 50,000 square foot building and 100 employees, that's great. But start out making 1 or 2 cookies, sell them online, sell them at farmers markets. Because when you go for funding, if you can show a track record of even a very tiny business starting to grow over a year or two. You started selling 10 cookies a week, then month 2, you're selling 100 a week. By the end of the year, you're selling 500 a week. That's still not a lot of money, but when you go to a lender, a banker, you're not a startup, which is a good thing as far as applying for funding. Also, you can show this level of growth. So they can see when you're putting down projections, financial projections, they can see the growth, and you're much more likely to get funded, as opposed to looking for a big amount of money as a startup without any background at all. So got off on a tangent, but I hope that gives you a little.
No, it was great. Thanks. We had a few questions about your email address. Andrew has the slide up.
Yeah,
that should be helpful. The webinar is recorded and will be on youtube.com/Chicago BACP. I put it in the chat. Another question, can we receive one-on-one counseling for additional questions or grant application help?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm available, but there are a number of very knowledgeable professional people within the NBDCs and the SBDC program that can assist you. So even though I'm speaking here today, my colleague Veronica, she's going to be gone for 2 weeks. She's getting married, but shoot us an email. We'll set you up. But also check out your local NBDC, your SBDC. Even though I'm the one talking today, there's a lot of good people with years and years of experience, and sometimes even within your own particular business. If you, for example, within the restaurant industry. Veronica Pinot has opened and successfully opened a couple of restaurants here in Chicago and run them for years. So if somebody asks me about opening a restaurant, I generally refer them to my colleague Veronica for specifically that. And if you are opening a restaurant, shoot Veronica an email. She'll be back in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you then.
Great, thank you. I have a health and wellness business with products that I sell. Are there any specifically for that? And does the government have contracts for that type of business that I have?
So when somebody says, "Is there any grants for my business?" Specific, if you were in a brick and mortar building and needed it fixed up, yes. You know, so that type of thing. There isn't just like a sector. There isn't just a pile of money waiting to go to a sector of for-profit businesses. However, the government buys pretty much everything. And also, if you've been successful with your health and wellness business in Chicago and in Illinois, and you may want to look at getting it into other states and then into Canada, Mexico, other countries. So the PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, are the ones to talk to about getting it into the government. And then secondly, you want to talk to the International Trade Centers, ITCs, about getting it into overseas and to other countries. You also want to touch base with your SBDCs and your NBDCs. You know, get into those networking events. Find out you know, how you can get your product and service into other states and other locations.
Okay, great. Can I apply for fund while doing some construction to get the inspection done to open the business?
So that's a sticky area. Okay. Anything that you complete, generally speaking, you're not going to get funding for. All right. So if you needed to, so I would recommend that you do the minimum. In this case, if, for example, you're in a SPIF, Small Business Improvement Fund area, and you know that you can qualify for funding, it's not a slam dunk, by the way. There's a certain amount of dollars that are scheduled to go to a SPIF zone, and if they have more requests and there's money available, some people go on a wait list. So I don't want to get your hopes up too much. It's a good program, and most of my clients I see do get funded either immediately or eventually, but it's not a slam dunk. However, so back to the question, if the city is requiring you to get work, to do work on your building to make it safe, then you have to do that work. However, I would put aside some of the other stuff that could wait and try and apply for SPIF funding for that. Also, Summer Corps does have people available to talk to you about what's covered, what is not covered, and you know, possibly the best way to do something very specifically like that you're discussing. But the short answer is no. If you do the work, I'm not aware of any grant program that's going to pay for it.
Great. Is there any helpful info for someone trying to start a tow truck company?
So again, there isn't really any money available unless you have a disability to help you start a business. Again, if somebody has a disability, then they can get a small amount of funding through the 36 Squared Boost Awards. However, you should explore getting funding for your tow truck company through loans, through small business loans. I'm guessing you need to buy a tow truck. If you bought one, I'm guessing you could. I've seen tow truck companies launch, depending on how much you get a used truck for $50,000, $75,000, I'm guessing. And there is funding available for that. Now, in that range, a lot of the large banks probably will not put a small business loan just because that's too small. So I would talk to the Women's Business Development Center, your local SBDC, your NBDC, also Allies for Community Business, about getting funding, a good loan that would assist you in launching that business.
Okay, great. Hello, our business is located in Inglewood and we received a grant for a new roof on our building with SPIF. We
Good.
dealt with Summercore and they have been wonderful. Can we apply for more grants in the year with SPIF, or is there a limit?
So in regards to the SPIF, I believe if you were eligible for, say, $150,000 worth of SPIF funding, and you got less than that, say you got 30, I believe that I don't know if there's anybody from Summercore on the line here listening, but I believe that you can apply and be eligible for that gap. So you couldn't get the full 150 again, but you could get whatever's left over. That's my understanding, but you'd want to check with Summercore on that. You may be eligible for some of the other grant programs we've discussed. I believe that, for example, if you went with the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, if you and you asked for 250, since that's also a city-funded grant, if you got 100 through SPIF, you may still be eligible, but they would take that 100 off, so you would only be eligible for 150. So once again, that's my understanding of the way these programs work. And certainly you could go ahead and apply for any other types of funding. You know, just receiving SPIF doesn't exclude you from a lot of these things.
Great, thanks. Another question. Oh, going back to that shared kitchen. She meant utilizing a shared kitchen, not buying one. And someone did mention the hatchery is a great resource for that. Yeah,
the hatchery is a great resource. But if you're talking about then funding to pay for your rent and supplies, when you moved into the hatchery, or there are a number of other shared kitchens, no, there isn't any grant funding. As I said, unless you have a disability and you could apply for a little bit of funds through the Boost Awards, then I would go the loan route with that. And since I'm guessing that's going to be a relatively small amount, I would connect with Allies for Community Business.
Great. I own quite a number of vacant lots and I am looking for help with funding to build 3 flats for affordable rental housing. Any suggestions?
That's actually a little bit out of my realm because it's residential.
Sure, I would contact the Department of Housing, which falls underneath Department of Planning and Development.
Yes. Also, perhaps the State Department of Human Services.
Oh, that's another great resource. Can I get a grant, pay my SBA loan back?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I'm trying to open a youth working program and I'm trying to get assistance with doing so or help finding out to really get it started. Is there any programs you know of?
So when a youth working program, that sounds like a nonprofit to me. And if you're thinking, talk to some, if you're not going the nonprofit route, or if this is still just in the idea phase, go talk to an SBDC or an NBDC about this, because it sounds like it would be a nonprofit. When you start a nonprofit, typically it's going to take a little while to gain traction, because a startup nonprofit is not going to get government grants immediately. So you may have to do some local fundraising. It's good to start small and start doing the work, so people can see, you know, you're doing this good thing in the community, and then try and send money your way, perhaps have events and do fundraisers and things like that. After you've been doing that for a few years, you'll get the attention of the foundations and perhaps some of the government entities, and you can go ahead and apply for that. But if you start a nonprofit, don't expect grant funding right away. People generally want to see that you're effective at what you're doing before it goes. As far as a for-profit model for a youth employment program, I don't know how that, and I don't know of any funding available for that. No, I didn't know.
Okay, great. There's a lot of questions for specific industries and businesses that they're open up. Are there any grants for opening up a grocery store, starting a farm, a cannabis business?
So there's virtually no grants available for starting businesses, for startups. Okay, that's I'm just not aware of, aside from if you have a disability and you wanted a small amount of money, the 36 squared boost awards. I'm not aware of any grants. And actually, this one is a common misconception. I used to think before I started doing this, that if you wrote a really good business plan, that meant you would get funded. And that's just not true. There's business plan contests and you might be able to find some funding that way, but really good business plan does not mean that does not equal funding. Startups are always very difficult to fund. Especially if you don't have any money yourself. Now, if you're Elon Musk, you can write a business plan on a napkin and a bank will throw you money because they know that he's good for it. But startups in general, there are no grant funds that I'm aware of for startups, and loans are difficult. What I would recommend is you start, whatever you're starting, you start very small. Try and get a little bit of funding through someone like Allies for Community Business and grow that business. And it's important to start small because any mistakes you make with a very small business are going to be small mistakes. If you, and I do get huge business plans written at least a couple of times a year where people will present me this business plan and they're looking for millions of dollars. And it just doesn't happen. But if you start small, very small, it's like on the job training. Your mistakes are going to be smaller. The debt you get in is going to be smaller, and you're going to learn so that as you grow your business, as you scale, you're going to be much more confident. Also, for the people that are listening that are doing startups, if you have no experience at all doing your business, if you want to open a coffee shop but you've never worked in one, if you want to do doggy daycare but you've never built one, go get a job in one. It's sometimes the business looks completely different from the inside than it does from the outside. You may not want to do it. Also, if you get a job in a doggy daycare, if you get a job in a coffee shop, it's on the job training. It's free. You're getting paid to learn how to do it. And keep, I'm not saying put your dream aside. I'm saying for a year or so, get the benefit of somebody else's expertise while you're learning. It's also going to help you get a loan. Lenders are reticent about giving money to do a business that they have absolutely no experience in.
Great. A few more questions on where the webinar will be posted. That's youtube.com/Chicago BACP. A few questions on how to get credit for the certificate program for this webinar. You could email bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org, and I will put both in the chat again.
Just one more thing with the entrepreneurship certificate program. Sure. I believe that CIBC, who sponsors our business incubator, if you have the certificate from the program, I believe that they will consider that.
Yes, it makes you eligible for a loan with the CIBC bank.
Yeah, correct. It gives, whereas they would not consider it before. And this is a small loan for startups. So that's certainly a good thing to consider.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
We are going to open a restaurant in 2 months, but are spending money doing some maintenance of the building, like painting, branding, etc. Can we get a grant for that later?
No. Yeah, no. If you've gotten all of the, if you have not done like the plumbing, the roofing, the tuck pointing, if you haven't done that type of work, the capital improvements on the building yet, I would recommend you look and see if you're in an area where there's SPIF funding available and take advantage of that. It's not going to pay for anything that's already been done. It also doesn't pay for more cosmetic things, so like painting. It wouldn't cover that. But if there's still work to be done, as I said, that's going to be like the plumbing, electrical, that type of thing, then you want to find out if you're in a SPIF area. You can go to summercore.com, find out if you're in a SPIF area and see if there's funding available to help you with it. But again, all the grants that I talked about, they pretty much don't pay for work that's already been done.
Okay, great. What disabilities qualify? Cognitive, behavior, learning disabled, service connected?
We don't make that determination. So you determine yourself. I believe within the Boost Award application, there's a question, what is the nature of your disability? So just describe it in there. So nobody is excluded. Let me put it that way, because you have this disability and not that one. You're kind of like self-identifying.
Great. They're asking how could they get help starting a nonprofit?
So that's actually a little bit difficult. The SBDCs typically work with for-profit businesses. Your local NBDC should be able to point you in the right direction with that. It's not a whole lot different than starting a for-profit. As far as actually starting the nonprofit, I would recommend you go to, you can do it yourself, but I recommend you go to LegalZoom.com. There's a couple of other online places where they will do all of the filing for your nonprofit and type of thing to walk you through it.
And BACP just actually offered a webinar last week on how to start your nonprofit. And you could see that webinar is recorded and posted on youtube.com/Chicago BACP.
There you go. A great resource.
Great. Next
I'm going to watch it.
I have a nonprofit daycare center and an LLC daycare center. Is there any funding to assist with contractors to complete this project?
I would check. When you say with contractors, it's kind of like a wide term. So I would check with Summer Corps and the SPIF program. See if you're in a SPIF area. See if that can assist you with that. Check with your alderman's office. See if any of the grant programs that I talked about, NOF, if they come available again, something like this may be of assistance to you. So I guess that check with your local alderman's office and check with Summer Corps to see if you're in a SPIF area.
Okay, great. Do I have to be a resident of Chicago in order to take advantage of these programs to open a business in Chicago?
Well, no, you don't have to be a resident of Chicago to open a business in Chicago. And if your business is in Chicago, if, for example, your building is physically in Chicago, then you can take advantage of most of these programs. The short answer is no.
Looking for more questions. Are you able to assist with a SPIF grant and NOF for new startups?
So any small business development center or any neighborhood business development center will assist you. However, that doesn't mean doing the work for you. Okay, so you would have to do that, put that together yourself. But certainly we can give you the information, make sure you're doing the right paperwork. As a startup, I'm not sure. I am not sure.
I think they have some detailed questions. They've tried to complete the application and it's hard for startups if you don't have the business already and the land acquisition. These applications ask for addresses of proposed building locations, copy of lease, proof of ownership.
Yeah, you do need control of the property before you're going to be approved, or control of the business before you're going to be approved for anything. So yeah, you're kind of just with SPIF, I would forget that unless you have actually physical control of the property. When the NOF, if it comes around again, and that's Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, I think it's .com, it might be .org. When that comes out again, first of all, you can go there today and see whether or not the address you're interested in is going to be eligible if and when that funding comes available again. And that grant is going to be more likely to help you acquire and improve the building. If you don't have control of the property, and by that I mean either owning it or leasing it with the approval of your landlord on doing improvements, then you're kind of wasting your time with the SPIF grant.
Great, thank you. Would Veronica be able to assist in the direction for funding a startup business for a bar and grill with a commercial property purchased already?
Quite likely, yes. And when people say assist, she's done all that stuff before, so she got, you know, you're getting free advice from somebody with experience.
Okay, great. Still looking through the questions. Someone asked, are we going to get some kind of certificate for attending today's webinar? The certificate that we're speaking of is BACP has a entrepreneurial certificate program, which you attend 9 work webinars in a 6-month period. After each webinar, you email bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. Once you've completed these, it makes you eligible for a loan with the CIBC Bank, which Andrew referred to a few times. There's a question, what about grant writing?
Okay, so we don't do grant writing. You know, these grants have forms that you can do yourself pretty simply, pretty easily to apply for. So if you're just talking about like general grant writing, we don't do that.
Fiscal sponsors. I had 2 or 3 questions on fiscal sponsors.
So a fiscal sponsor is if you start a nonprofit, initially, I'm talking about a 501c3 where you're tax exempt and you can start accepting donations. You're not going to get the letter from the IRS and be eligible for, it can take 6 months in my experience. It can take quite a while. So you can find a fiscal sponsor, which is another nonprofit organization, which will essentially be a pass-through of funding for you to do this. I'm not aware of anybody right now in Chicago who's doing it. I don't want to throw out a couple of names, only because it's been a couple of years since I've worked through with these organizations. However, there are nonprofit fiscal sponsors, and I would imagine this subject was probably touched on the BACP webinar that is currently on YouTube about forming a nonprofit. So I would go back and look at that. But the short answer is, yeah, it's a great way. If you start a nonprofit, it's good to have a fiscal sponsor, because then you'll be able to take donations immediately through them.
Okay, great. There's a few questions on any website or suggestions for a youth work center or home. I know we kind of briefly mentioned that before, but we're getting a few more questions on that.
If you're talking about finding the physical location, if you want to, yeah, not really. Yeah, I don't really have any advice on that. You know, Cook County Land Bank, if you want to acquire property, but often that property is in severe disrepair. You are getting it for very, very cheap, and you could possibly find funding to fix it up. But if you're looking to start your youth home, that could be a long road, I think. So I'm sorry, I don't have better information for you.
They might also be asking for any grants or loans for that as well.
Yeah, again, starting as a startup nonprofit or startup business, I'm not aware of any grants that are available for that, for startups, period.
Okay, great. If anyone else has any questions, if you could please put them in the chat or the Q&A, trying to get through all of them, making sure we at least touch base. What if you're not in a SPIF area?
Then you're not eligible for a SPIF grant, but there may be others. If you have for example, an SSA, typically if you're in like a retail area, a commercial corridor, there may be SSA funding available. It's typically a much smaller amount than the SPIF grant, but it can also help you with like security cameras, facade facade improvement. And I would check with whoever your local chamber of commerce is, or perhaps your alderman's office to see if you're in an SSA, and that might be helpful.
That sounds great. We'll give everyone another minute while we're waiting for everyone to put in their last questions. I also want to let everyone know that our first in-person expo is Saturday, March 11th at Kennedy King College. This is a free expo that will have city, state, federal agency, and nonprofit exhibitors giving you free resources on how to start and grow your business here in the city of Chicago. There will be 3 workshops. There is a keynote speaker. All this could be found on our website. Let's see, we had one more. Angel grants they're asking about. Any information on angel grants?
So, no, yeah, I think you're talking more about angel investors. So this is something you would want to talk to your SBDC or NBDC about. If you have a business and your angel investors are private investors, and they're your local SBDC in particular, and perhaps your NBDC can talk to you about how to approach investors about investing in your company. It's that kind of funding is not easy to get, and typically investors want to own they want a piece of your company. So be aware of that.
Okay, great. I have a small candle business and I run a booth at Navy Pier. We are going through a slow period now, and I'm looking for a grant to help with payroll.
Yeah, there really isn't anything like that. If you're looking for, I would recommend you talk to Allies for Community Business about a small loan to get you over the hump until we get back into the tourist season.
Okay, what are the best grants for people that are trying to open a towing business, and how long will it take to open the business?
Well, there are no grants for people who are trying to start businesses that I'm aware of. As far as how long does it take, it can go pretty quickly. Although with towing, there may be some additional licensing or permitting that I'm not aware of. But you can start a business fairly quickly, as long as you have, these days licenses come through pretty quickly. It doesn't take very long.
Okay, looking through the questions.
By the way, I was said at the beginning, and I want to reiterate, but this is what I've been talking about today is essentially my own opinions and facts that I'm aware of from my experience. Some cases, especially with the grant program, sometimes they tweak them a little bit. Sometimes there's changes. I've tried to be as up to date as possible. Usually when one thing goes away, it's replaced with something else. So.
Okay, great. I just put where you could find more information on the Small Business Expo. That is March 11th, Saturday at Kennedy King College, which is 740 West 63rd Street, the U building, and it's www.chicago.gov/bizexpo. Okay, Andrew, that looks like there's all the questions. I want to thank you so much for all the great information and always being such a great speaker for BACP. I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar. It will be posted on BACP's YouTube page. That's youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. And again, I hope to see everyone at the expo on the 11th. Thanks, everyone. Have a great and safe weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.